Hi, this is Bob Paskins. I'm a sales consultant as well as a creator of the Growth Matrix, where we look to elevate salespeople and sales processes to achieve desired growth. Today, we're going to talk about how it is a good idea for you to get mini commitments from the buyer before you ask for the major commitment at the end. I'm going to give you 4 good mini commitment questions that you can ask the buyer to help you along this process. This can be found on the development element of the Growth Matrix. I'm working with a landscape contractor, and the landscape contractor was frustrated. He said, Bob, I'm going out and I'm meeting with these potential buyers, and I'm spending a whole lot of time with them, and I think I'm doing all the right things. I'm building rapport. I'm making sure I think I understand what they want. I'm able to get my engineering team and bring them to the table to really kind of cement what we need to do for this process. But at the end, when I come to the buyer and I prepare the proposal for them, they take one look at it and say, you know what, I'm not really so sure about this. Or, yeah, this is nice, but maybe we can do this later. As you can imagine, the landscape contractor is frustrated by that experience because all of the time and the energy that he put into this proposal only to kind of get the push off from the buyer. What I encourage them to do is to work with what I call mini commitments along the way in the sales process. What mini commitments are either a verbal or a mental or even a signature, a non-binding signature from the buyer agreeing to the terms that you are laying out as you are putting this project into effect. What I would say is it's creating the pathway from the initial consultation to the final proposal. So here are the 4 mini commitment questions that I would use. I'm going to frame this on this aspect of the landscaper as they would ask the questions to the buyer. However, I would encourage you obviously to tailor make these that would fit your industry. The first question is this: when would you like to have this project completed? For the landscaper, you might ask, when would you like to have the backyard done? If they'd say by August 1st, terrific, you'd know the timeline that you are working with. The second is about budget. It would be something like, are you comfortable spending this amount of money for your backyard? Great, if you're able to lock in the agreement of the amount of money that the buyer wishes to spend, that's another mini commitment check. The third would be, can we clarify the scope of work that you want me to do? For the landscaper, again, they would be clarifying what shrubs or bushes, the fountain or the fire pit that you might want to put into place. But the fourth one, that's the grand finale, the big one. It's what I call the if we, then you mini commitment. And what it does is it wraps up the other 3. Starting out by saying, if we are able to put this scope of work in that we've talked about, be able to get it completed by this certain date, at this certain budget, then will you look to buy from us? By creating this pathway of taking care of the budget, the scope of work, and the timing, what we are looking to do before we get a commitment to move forward with engineering or anything else is to have the buyer agree to those terms. Using mini commitments really does 2 things. The first thing it does, it highlights the pathway of commitments from the first initial meeting all the way through the process. And I encourage you to continue to ask for mini commitments throughout that entire sales process. The second thing, though, is just as important. If the buyer is not able to give you a mini commitment, then at that point, you're able to look back and figure out where was there a disconnect that you can come back and clarify. Or if they still are not interested in working with you, you know that they would probably not be a good buyer and you can move on earlier in the process instead of wasting the time. So if you would like help with your team in developing what your mini commitment statements would be, or if you would like me to come and help train your sales staff on using these mini commitments, feel free to reach out to me at my website at bobpaskins.com. Thanks for watching.